So, I was trying to do this live today, and for whatever reason, first my FaceTime camera on my computer didn't work, so I restarted, and now thank God it works, because there were a couple of meetings yesterday on Zoom that just it wasn't happening. So I'm at least glad I got that problem fixed. But I use this tool called Ecamm Live to do my live streams, where I can show you my face but also do screen recordings. And it just keeps giving me errors today. So this Facebook will not be live. I will still upload it to Facebook and YouTube as I usually do. And, didn't want to skip this week because, first of all, I wanted to show off some of this cool new swag I got from one of my favorite companies. It's called Ahrefs. And it's the suite of SEO tools that I use to manage projects both for myself and for my clients. I got this sweet mug, and I have some new stickers that I'll be adding to this beast over here. So I'm just excited to show that off, and I'm glad that I could get my camera to work so that it wouldn't just have to be me talking about it. Also, a couple exciting life changes are in the midst. For those who know me, I am in the middle, or I guess for those who maybe don't know me as well, I'm in the middle of both trying to buy my first home as well as planning a wedding. And doing both of these things at the same time is not easy. It's a lot of work on top of the work that I already have to do for clients and, things like this. So I might have some exciting news on both fronts by next week, but I don't want to jinx it by saying anything now. So without further ado, let's get into what I wanted to talk about this week, which is a blog called Go Fatherhood. So I'm going to switch my screen here so you can see it. Go Fatherhood is actually, I think, the last of the Denver Bloggers Club blogs that I'll be going over, at least until I get some more. So I'm definitely looking for new websites to audit at this point. I've gone through most, if not all, of my backlog. So I'll be kind of soliciting people for more websites soon. So anyway, Go Fatherhood is a blog written by a single dad. Just after having interacted with Dave in person, I know that a lot of his blog has to do with things like film reviews or reviewing specific products and things like that. And you can see that very clearly on the front page of the website. I like how the menu kind of collapses and the logo gets smaller as you scroll. And also, I'm really interested in his menu hierarchy here. So when you scroll, you still see home, about me, contact me, and find me. But when you go up, you also get the categories of the specific reviews or, blog articles that he's writing. One thing that I would recommend, it would be nice to still be able to see these categories as you scroll. I guess they are here in the sidebar, so that's better than nothing, but it would be nice to have access to them as you're scrolling if you're already going to have the menu there. But even if you don't do that, the only other thing I would recommend in terms of that part would be to make the category text, the font size, a little bit bigger. Especially if your target audience is other parents, they probably, not to make assumptions, but they're probably older, it's probably harder for them to see this. It's also kind of a tough contrast with this black on this beige orange color. So whatever you can do to increase readability on that point, and even maybe with these things down here, after the title, where you're sharing the date, the author is probably always going to be used. So I might even recommend taking out this little author piece, but then with the categories and, the comment call to action thing there. So, I think overall the style looks good. Like I say, for pretty much everyone's blog, it would be nice to see a customized excerpt instead of just the first couple of lines. But again, this is kind of like a do as I say, not as I do kind of thing, because I'm just as guilty as not customizing those things. But if you're going to use your blog feed as your front page, I think that it's fair to want to, if you want to use it the best that you can, then doing something like that. So no major changes on the home page. I think that all the information is organized well, so I don't really have any qualms with it. I guess one thing I will say, which I say again about pretty much everyone's blog, is set better expectations in terms of how often you're going to be sending, blog stuff, or, if you have like a newsletter that's not just the latest posts, set expectations around that. And maybe, if it's not just a blog feed, basically type email, say that. So tell people what they're going to expect in their inbox when they subscribe with you. And then I think this is, since we're, using this space here to introduce people to the personality behind these posts, which, is an important factor when you're going through a personal blog. I would take this opportunity to add a little bit more emphasis to this section in terms of like having a heading that says, about the author, the person behind the blog, something like that, and then making this image a little bit more big, a little easier to see. So, like I said, I really don't have a whole lot of very specific comments about this blog, but another thing that I'll say is when you go to the About page, it's mostly text. So 2 suggestions here. One, to add some formatting to specific things that you want to call out, specific parts of your story that you want to draw attention to. Having some more visual imagery would be great too, whether it's just a picture of you, if it's a picture of, your kids or something. I don't know if that's even something that he does, but just having a little bit more variation between the text so that it's not just blocks of text. This is kind of like a newer online writing trend, which is just to break it up whatever way you can, because it helps people to scroll and keep reading. It keeps them interested, essentially. It might be good too, since this is a blog, to use your About page as like a start here page. So it's like, okay, if this is the first time you're here, here are some selected stories from, different categories, maybe one category, maybe a couple of your favorite categories, and say, if you want to get a good idea of what to expect on this blog, click here, whatever. So let's look at the Contact Me page. I really like the Contact Me page. It has a great contact form. It's very inviting. He gives you some prompts as to why you'd want to get in touch, as well as the ability to categorize your query from the get-go. For people to set expectations who are getting in touch with Dave as far as what they want to accomplish by getting in touch, which is great. One thing that I think is really interesting that I was playing around with before I started this live is this ability to click this little thing in the corner to subscribe to notifications. Personally, I'm not the type of person who subscribes to like any sort of notifications, even if it's on like apps that I use every day, because for the most part I get notifications for anything that's important via email, or I get them on my phone. I'm kind of in like notification overload. But this is definitely a tactic that some bloggers use very effectively. And what I would usually expect in this corner here would be, like it kind of looks, minus the actual icon, like a button for live chat. So I think that it's a good way to get attention. And then when people click it, they're either going to say yes or no, but there's no loss in doing it that way. And it's certainly a lot less annoying than having that push notification notice opt-in thing deploy without you asking and getting in the way. So I really like that. He has a cookie consent notice, which even though, he is a US-based blogger, I think is a great idea, because I think that GDPR will eventually become the standard by which we're all held to. And, if anything, having a blog, having a website inevitably invites an international audience. So even if you're not necessarily selling things to people, there's really, no bad thing by enabling certain GDPR features on your website. And, even if it doesn't necessarily affect you now, that doesn't mean it won't in the future. So by getting ahead of the trend, that's a good way to just find success online in general and to protect yourself, because when GDPR first became a thing, or at least I guess we'll say once the deadlines were imposed, people were really scrambling, and some people had to delete thousands of people off their email list because they hadn't consensually gotten their email, at least according to GDPR standards. So, don't let that happen to you in the future. Set up your systems right now. So with that, I think that's all that I want to say right now about this website. I think that it's got a very solid structure. It kind of focuses back like 100% on the content, and I love that. I think that some people get caught up in having too many features, too many shiny things, but at the end of the day, if you want somebody to read your blog, you've got to provide a great reading experience. So with a few small tweaks, I think that this blog could do even better, but even with that, I think it's doing pretty great on its own. So sorry I couldn't get this live, but I'm still planning to get it out to everybody, and looking for new websites to audit in the meantime.